The United Kingdom is starting the new year without ties to the European Union.
The Brexit transition period ended officially on New Year's Eve after months of negotiating a new trade deal. The UK voted to leave the European Union in 2016. That took place January 31st of last year. But both sides agreed to keep many things the same until the end of 2020, while they negotiated new terms on a new trade deal.
Joining us now to talk more about Brexit and what this could mean for the U.S. is Michelle Egan. She's a professor of American history in Washington, D.C. and focuses on comparative politics and political economy. Professor, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So a lot of people are watching this and they probably thought the UK already left the EU, but this has actually remained. So what has changed?
Well, what happened is that after 4 years of endless discussion in British politics, the British finally have left the EU. And they've actually negotiated a deal with the EU. And a lot of things on January the 1st will change, primarily for British citizens traveling and also for British business. You know, they'll face a bit more tariffs, a bit more paperwork, a bit more red tape in exporting to the EU. Remember, the British have been a member of the EU for 47 years. So it's like extracting yourself in terms of a divorce after 47 years.
It is. That's a good way to put it. So briefly catch us up on the genesis of Brexit, how we got here, and why wouldn't the UK want to be part of the EU?
Yeah, I mean, one has to ask, because this is the biggest trading partner, the EU is a market of 500 million people and consumers, but the British have had a very sort of awkward relationship at times with the EU. I think they felt that it had become a little bit more federal than they would like, and a lot of the discourse in British politics has been about global Britain getting sovereignty back, and they've decided they want more sort of autonomy than they actually want market access. So it was a sort of political choice, very much driven by the Conservative Party politics. So a lot of this was not really about, do we like the EU, do we not like the EU? A lot of it was trying to deal with the different factions in the British Conservative Party. Well, a lot of them were much more, shall we call it, sovereigntists.
Okay, so a lot of our viewers are wondering, how does Brexit affect Americans and the rest of the world outside Europe?
Absolutely. I mean, if you are a U.S. citizen and you're traveling sort of to Britain, a year from now, post-COVID, you're not going to find a lot of difference. One difference, I think, is if you take a pet and you go into the UK and then want to go into Europe, then there will be a lot more paperwork. It won't be easy. The second thing, I think, when we think of going into Europe, we often think about we have to have a passport. And one of the issues that you will find now is that you will probably be standing in line with EU citizens, and they will also have to go through the same queue, as we say in Britain. So I think the lines may get longer to get through passport control. For business, for American business, it actually matters because, a lot of American investment has been in Britain, just like New York and the stock exchange and the financial markets in New York and also in Chicago. You also have the City of London, and a lot of American companies have been anticipating the last 4 years and have actually moved some staff, some assets, some resources in the financial sector into the rest of the EU. So that's sort of what we're looking at. And right now, the US and the UK have been negotiating a trade deal, a free trade agreement. We've been talking about NAFTA and USMCA, but quietly behind the scenes, the US and the UK under the Trump administration have been negotiating a free trade agreement, and that's going to continue under the Biden administration.
That was my next question. I was going to ask you about how this impacts trade, because that's really where we're going to see the effects of Brexit, right?
Absolutely. And, a lot of this sort of economic analysis has said this is kind of going to have a negative effect on UK growth and, UK trade. But, it's also going to be very regionalized because, Britain has sort of levels of regional inequality. It also, like the US, has different sort of economies in the different parts of the country. So a lot of the concern was that we're a service economy. We're not a manufacturing economy anymore. And so a lot lot of the services were not included in this free trade agreement with the EU. So some people think that that may be a long-term cost for Britain.
And briefly, last question, you mentioned all that red tape, and there will also be new regulations to navigate. Do you think the countries involved are ready and prepared?
Yes and no. I think, Scotland and Northern Ireland in particular, both were very concerned about not being involved in any of the negotiations because it came out of London. A lot of the information to businesses has been coming out in the last month. And so businesses, to some degree, were waiting on, will there be a deal? Will there not? How can we prepare? How not? I think there's a transition period for about 4 to 6 months, but a lot of small businesses are going to have a lot more paperwork to do. And the biggest issue will be, how will we deal with Northern Ireland? Because it's part of the EU single market, but its sovereignty is part of the UK. So it has this real kind of almost, Janus face, bifurcated. It looks one way for the economics and one way for the politics.
Professor Egan, thank you very much for breaking it all down for us. It's a complicated issue, and we're happy to have you.
Thank you very much.